Yo, 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 yo.
It's the grand finale.
It's the grand finale of season 2.
I hope that sounded as cool to people as it did in my head, because I was like, yes.
Yes, you nailed it, Kyle.
Sweet.
You nailed
awesome.
it, buddy.
Only took me 34 or 32 episodes to get.
No, this is number 30.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we did just do a flat 20 this time. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Flat 20. Flat 20.
Yeah.
We have been releasing episodes since March,
I know.
and it's July.
Yes, it is.
By the time this comes out, will it still be July and maybe August? I don't know. It's going to be
It comes
close
out-
to the end of July.
What, 2 weeks from now?
2 weeks from today. So
It'll be
30th.
like the second to last day of July.
Very nice. Well, if you're listening to this on the day that it dropped, happy end of July.
Woo!
There's no holiday around that time that I know of.
And it's,
so,
right in the middle of the dog days of summer. But
yeah.
while we're recording this, we're about to start that weird week that you're all going to be talking about where it's like 80 every day in Springfield. Yeah.
Thank God.
Bless.
So, Kyle, speaking of gods and heat,
And camels.
we didn't talk about camels.
We should have, because they're in this movie.
They're in this movie. Kyle, for the last time in season 2, Kyle. What are we talking about this week, man?
We were talking about the Brendan Fraser led, super goofy, bad CGI, fun time movie, The Mummy from
The Mummy.
1999.
1999. We're gonna party like it's 1999. We're gonna
A
party
very
like
good-
it's the season 2 finale. We're gonna party like this isn't one of the greatest. This movie is terrible, and I absolutely love it. Movies of all time.
We're going to party like we have sand in our pants, because everybody in this movie definitely had to have sand in their pants.
No kidding. No
and ants in their
kidding.
pants. Well, scarabs in their pants, which is, as you'll see, much scarier than ants in your pants.
Much worse. Much worse.
Much worse.
Nothing worse than CGI buds. You'll
Oh,
realize that
God.
very quickly.
Ugh.
Oscar nominee for Best Sound.
Yeah, that one, I think it
I
should
thought
have been.
I thought that was kind of strange, but I was like, okay, whatever. Kyle, the cover of this has got to be one of the best covers of. I don't know if you would consider this modern cinema, but
Simona?
it has to be one of the best covers, at least of the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
The logo, would you call it a logo? The look of the face in the sand is so classic.
Mhm.
It's crazy. Whoever thought of
It's-
that, genius.
It's so simple and powerful at the same time.
It works.
Yeah, it
works.
does. No, it works really well.
I like it better than I like his face.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not as good. It's good when it's the face in the sand when the sand's on the ground. It's not as good when it's the sandstorm.
That's true. Yeah, the sandstorm's not great. It's kind of
his
like
face.
it's kind of like the Mummy himself. He becomes better looking as the movie goes on as
I
well.
like my mummies ugly.
I like my mummies with eyes and a tongue, because at least then they can speak to me in an ancient Egyptian dialect nobody understands.
That's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Made $417 million on an $80 million budget.
Whew.
Do you think that's the number one movie of 1999?
No.
Do you think it's
Is
top
it-
5?
Probably.
It may be 5. It may be 5
No
depending on
way.
which one you.
No
it,
way.
It may be number 5. Star Wars Episode 1, The
Mhm.
Sixth Sense, Toy Story 2, and The Matrix all released
Yep.
the same year. So did Tarzan. Tarzan's the one that's kind of. I'm not sure if it's actually higher or lower than Tarzan. Box Office Mojo Online does not include the international box office for some reason.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyways,
My gut would tell me that Tarzan probably did better internationally than The Mummy, but I don't know if Disney was as international then as it is now.
I wouldn't say it was as it is now. Now we should make sure that we. Now I know we said the year and everything, but preface this: this is not the Tom Cruise Mummy.
No.
I,
no.
along with everyone else living, did not see that movie. So
I unfortunately did.
why?
But look, man, my dad was a sucker for action movies. Tom Cruise usually makes good action movies. I was disappointed on all fronts. All fronts.
Yeah.
It's rough. It's like the original Suicide Squad. It's rough. It's so much lesser than the sum of its parts that it's ridiculous. Like, it should be really cool, and it's not.
It's just not. Moving on. Directed by Steven Sommers. You like Steven Sommers movies?
I mean, I'm not sure that I know off the top of my head any other Steven
Well,
Sommers movies.
here's his movies: The Mummy,
Okay.
The
The
Mummy
Mummy 2.
Returns,
Uh-huh.
and GI Joe: Rise of the Cobra.
Tell you what, they're not good, but I do like Steven Sommers movies. He's like a diet Michael Bay. Like it's not going to be great, but I'm going to be entertained.
Michael Bay. he's an Etsy Michael Bay.
He's a more kid-friendly Michael Bay. Like
That's
he's
fair.
he's Michael Bay for preteens.
That's fair. He's been inactive other than producing credits since 2013. Whatever. I'm sure he has his reasons, man. Look, how many movies have we directed?
Exactly. Look, man, they were both. I'm gonna guess he made so much money off the two of them that he was like, "I'm good."
Yeah, he also gets like producing credits for any other Mummy movie.
Yeah, and producers get paid, so like,
right.
He's fine. I'm sure.
I'm not knocking the guy.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was just making fun of the fact that he made G.I. Joe.
G.I.
Joe: Rise of the Cobra.
Well, that's probably why he stopped. He probably saw Mummy: Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, which was like the year before G.I. Joe: Rise of Cobra, and thought, man, I could have done that, and it'd have been better.
No, I think there's 5 years between them because I want to say G.I. Joe was 2013.
No, I think the second G.I. Joe is 2013.
It's the G.I. Joe. Wait,
G.I. Joe.
Which one's the second one?
Rise of Cobra is 2009.
Oh, which is the year after Jet Li's A Mummy.
Which is probably film-wise even worse than the first two Mummy movies.
I've never finished it.
I like it. I think it's equally entertaining, but it's not good. But none of them are good. They're not supposed to be good. That's not why you watch these movies.
Does it have The Rock? Then I don't care.
Yeah.
Other than this first one. All right. Also written by Steven Sommers, Lloyd Fonville. Sorry, I didn't look him up. And Kevin Jarre. Kevin Jarre keeps popping up in our podcast, man. Kevin Jarre, writer and fired director of Tombstone.
Yeah.
And writer of Glory, man. What is going on here?
He's good at writing. He's bad at directing. We have connected the dots.
I don't know. I mean, he's written 3 bangers.
Exactly.
7.1 on IMDb.
Okay. All right.
62% from critics on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics, shut the hell up, man.
Come on, guys.
Shut
do you
up.
not like to have fun? Do you just you go out there and you're like, I don't want to have fun. I don't want this movie to make me have fun.
It's supposed to be an entertaining movie for roughly 90 minutes. Just sit down and enjoy it, okay? What was poorly executed in this? Huh?
It was exactly what you paid for. It was a Brendan Fraser action movie
about a freaking mummy.
Yeah.
All right. 75% from audience. Still, I don't know. Maybe this movie may be the perfect 75%. I'm not gonna lie. That may be a little bit of a spoiler for my overall rating, but a 75%, that's about spot on. I think that's what this movie went for.
I agree.
All right, let's get into it.
All right.
Thebes, 1290 BC. Fun fact, none of this is shot in Egypt.
Is it all in like Jordan or?
Most of it's shot in Britain.
Oh,
and then there's parts of it that were shot in the Sahara, or something like that, which is in Africa. Somewhere?
Yes, correct. Okay. It's in many places in Africa. It's like the biggest desert in the world.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Kidnapping
insurance had to be taken out for cast and crew, though they weren't told until after shooting had finished.
Oh, no.
So if any of the cast members got kidnapped and held for ransom, they were insured. So that's good.
Oh, no. Oh, dear.
Seti the First, Imhotep, Anatsunamun. Any of these people real?
Seti the First is a pharaoh, actually, in 1290 BC. That general time period. He is the son of Ramses the First and the father of Ramses the Second. So he's basically the third out of 5 or the second out of 5. I'm trying to remember when that line ends, of like 5 really, really strong and benevolent pharaohs all in a row. So he is ruling Egypt at its absolute peak. Like his son is Ramses the Great. So give you an idea of how powerful Seti the First would be just by nature of being pharaoh of Egypt at this time.
Well, apparently he wasn't very powerful in the sack because his wife, his property, I don't know what she's supposed to be, the hot Egyptian girl, Anatsunamun, don't be getting it on with the priest. which seems wrong.
Which is interesting because Imhotep is a real person, but he's not a priest, and he's way older than Seti the First. So I'm not sure if they just took the name because that's the name they use in the original movie that that this is a remake of, the 1930s one.
Remake would be a very loose term.
Yeah, reimagining. I think that's a better.
But with that said, though, it does have, he comes back and he is trying to resurrect his long dead love. So
I think
that part's
I think the
right.
basic story is it's a remake. It's just,
I've seen it one time. It's 33, I think, 1933.
It's a Boris Karloff movie. I mean,
it's old. It's great. It's not Frankenstein level. And if I'm in the movie to watch a Universal monster movie from the 30s, sorry, The Mummy is not the one that comes to mind.
Anyway, Imhotep is a real dude, but he's not a real dude in the capacity of the movie. He is potentially the architect of the first step pyramid in Egypt. So before they did the true pyramids, he's like potentially the father of pyramid architecture, if I'm remembering him correctly.
There's a little fact that I forgot to mention whenever I mentioned that they shot in the Sahara Desert. The fact that snakes, scorpions, and spiders were actually a legitimate problem, and multiple crew and cast members had to be airlifted off the set because they were bitten.
Oh my god!
So fun work conditions there.
Yikes.
Okay, moving on. Was body paint a thing?
Yeah. I mean, body paint's a thing in most cultures. I'm not sure that it's a thing to the level that a Noxuna Moon is
What
rocking.
are you talking about, dude?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure ancient Egypt didn't have mostly naked women walking around painted pure gold, but I can't promise that. I wasn't there.
Well,
if it happened, we don't have a record of it. I'll put it that way.
It doesn't stick to the mummified bones, does it?
No, it does not. But body paint and gold paint are a really big part of ancient Egypt.
So for this movie, it took 4 hours to apply that body paint.
Oh my gosh.
I can tell you this, boys. I watched it in 4K. She's wearing pasties. Not worth the upgrade. The pharaoh finds the smeared body paint on his wife's shoulder. Imhotep reveals himself, and the two murder him. Couldn't she have just said that she had like an itch? She scratched it?
Right?
Or I laid down on my side earlier. Because at first I was writing, I was like, that's a great way to reveal that he knows about the affair. And then I was like, that'd be so easy to cover up, though.
I think the implication is that she only paints herself like that when she's presented to him. So I think the idea is like she's supposed to walk from being painted to him, and so he's like, you're not supposed to be touched in the hallway. What is this?
Wouldn't she just be a big smeared mess by the end of the
Well, yeah, man, but it's all about who's doing the smearing. Like, my father and his father and his father did not conquer this dynasty just for you to get smeared by some other dude. All right.
My birthright earned this.
Yeah, we have to have standards. Otherwise, we're no better than the Assyrians. Okay? Like, come on now.
Hey, we murdered them. So
exactly.
All right. Let's talk Egyptian torture and execution methods.
Oh, let's talk about it.
So it's PG-13, so it's kind of breezed over. But even what they discuss in here, I mean, it's pretty brutal.
It's pretty rough.
We got jars for organs. We got detonguing. We've got buds in sarcophagus. What happened? What happened in real life?
None of those things.
Great.
Really. There's no like mummification while alive, mostly because mummification, to my knowledge, and I did take a single Egypt class, so that's cool.
Nice. Did you have to be single to take the class?
I hate you. Anyway, not even gonna respect that with an actual response. So mummification is a purely religious thing. It's not, because it's done to dead bodies. So it's not something that you threaten people with. It would be like, I don't know, the CIA deciding to cremate people alive, if that makes sense, or embalm them alive. Like, it's not that you couldn't do it, but that's not where your head's going to go when it comes to torturing people. Like, it's not something that is associated with that. So again, Egypt is a very old place. It has a lot of history. I can't promise nobody was ever mummified alive, but that's not the go-to. Like, people aren't going to be using that as a normal technique. If you do oppose the pharaoh, though, what can happen to you is anything from decapitation to burning to cooking to bounding.
I don't like the difference between burning and cooking.
I think boiling when cooking, or like actually or they dig an oven in the desert. They make like a bread oven in the desert and they shove you in it.
What is a bread oven?
Okay, so like Egypt's desert, right?
Right.
Desert hot.
Yes.
If I put stones in the sand in the desert in the sun, stones hot, right? Okay, and then I shove you into it like a bread oven, and I shut the door and I let you suffocate
there's a door.
And like boil to death in whatever, or I boil you in a pot or whatever, but I will actually cook you as a human being to torture you. Even if they didn't do that in actual like real life, they thought that in the afterlife you could be punished that way. So there's precedence that if they thought that in the afterlife, why wouldn't they do it in real life?
My goodness, man. Do you think at one point somebody's standing outside and they're like, he's done. He's perfectly cooked right now. We could pull him out and we could have a tasty meal. It's Egypt, man. Everything's hot. There's no way they had like great meat around them. Somebody thought of it.
Mm-hmm. But I will say the two that really grind my gears as far as torture goes is bounding and reversal. So bounding is tying your arms behind your head and hanging you from them at like a slant, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Reversal is is tying your feet down and yanking your arms so bad that it breaks your spine back over itself.
My goodness, dude.
Yeah, like they actually reverse
with these Egyptians, man.
Bro, ancient times, man. And again, reversal is one that's found in like the afterlife text. So we're not 100% sure that they did it, but again, if it was a thing that they thought was happening to you after you died, why wouldn't they do it to you in life? Most cultures, if it's physical torture in their afterlife, they've probably done it to somebody.
They're like, hey, Timmy, we need to try something before we write it down.
And then more civil punishments for like crimes are flogging, forced labor, and beatings. So pretty standard ancient world stuff. The Egyptians were around a long time, dude. They had a lot of time to get creative with their torture methods.
I guess so.
And one important thing to go into this movie with, scarab beetles don't eat flesh. They eat feces. There is not a flesh-eating bug in Egypt that they could pour into a coffin to eat.
See, man, half this movie just got debunked right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's an awesome, I love it for the movie, but it's not a thing. And anybody who knows anything about a scarab beetle is going to be like, it's a dung beetle. Scarabs are just dung beetles.
So, and I don't know if this was an extra or if this was something. The idea is that when we get to where Imhotep is mummified alive, essentially, and they put all of these beetles in the same sarcophagus with him,
right? While he's still writhing around.
Yeah, so they're going to eat him, and then his only way to combat it is to bite them back. He has to. He would, so essentially he'd be eating pieces of himself slowly. And so it's like this vicious cycle of it extending because he would be inadvertently eating these beetles who are also eating pieces of him.
Yeah.
That's messed up, man. That's messed up.
It ain't good.
Now we breeze over that because this is PG-13, like I said.
Right. We don't go into the details of eaten alive by beetle, but you can imagine.
So Imhotep, before he's put through this, he tries to revive Anat-Sun-Amun through this ritual, but he's found by the pharaoh's bodyguards, and him and his entire crew are tortured and killed. Hamdai. This is the way that they kill Imhotep. Is there any truth to this? I mean, you already said that the mummified alive and the putting the beetles in there is not real, but the Hamdai, Homdai, at least that's what it said in the subtitles. Any truth to what this is?
So, no, yes and no, but mostly no. So Egypt has this really long history of curses and mysticism and things like that. As far as I could tell, barring something that I didn't find on Google, Hamdai is something they made up for the movie. They just made up a torture. Or maybe they found Hamdai listed as something and they applied it. But one thing that is usually linked to ancient Egypt is this thing called the curse of the pharaohs, but it applies to people who disturb the rest of the pharaohs, disturb their tombs. And it's the thing that Howard Carter, the guy who found King Tut, His dog died in England randomly, like just dropped dead, like 5 minutes after he opened the tomb, as it turns out. And a bunch of people died of heart attacks and stuff after going into the tombs. So that's the curse of the pharaoh. And it's one of those weird, creepy ones where like it's probably not true, but enough people have died messing with pharaoh stuff in the 20th century that you're not super comfortable saying it's completely untrue either.
Yeah.
Sort of deal. So yeah.
So after he has been put to his eternal resting place, it says the Magi will never allow him to be released. He will be undead for eternity. Mm-hmm. Who is the Magi? Like in real life, is there a Magi? Or they say they're just the descendants of the Pharaoh's bodyguards. These are the ones that capture Imhotep and stop him from bringing back the Natsunamun.
So there are the Magi, and they are, they're around. They're really more like a desert police force, though.
That sounds dope.
Yeah, so they're really not as by the time of Seti the First, so the New Kingdom, which is the last hurrah of like what we think of as ancient Egypt. In like the 1200s BC, the Magi are a paramilitary police force. So they're like the SWAT team of ancient Egypt, I suppose, but they're not the pharaoh's bodyguards necessarily. So that's close. I'm okay with like how close that is, because
that's
the Magi are protecting areas of interest for the pharaoh. So they're the city guard. They protect cemeteries, borders, royal palaces, but they're not the pharaoh's bodyguards, if that makes sense. Like the Secret Service are not each individual president's bodyguards. They are the bodyguard of the office of the president. That's kind of what the Magi are to the pharaoh. They're the bodyguard of the pharaoh's interests. And then the pharaoh might have picked a handful of personal bodyguards, but it's not the Magi as a whole. They're not responsible for keeping the pharaoh safe in like a day-to-day capacity.
Gotcha. So Imhotep's been buried. Now it's 1923, and we're in Hamunaptra. Mm-hmm. What's going on? There's this raid and the defense scene. This is where we're introduced to Brendan Fraser's Rick O'Connell and Kevin O'Connor's Benny DeBoer. I don't know if that's how you say his last name, Benny. Everyone always calls him Benny throughout it. Rich is promoted whenever the captain or whoever the highest ranking person is runs away.
Promoted by fire.
He commands the defending group of troops. Benny runs away, then locks Rick out of the tomb he is hiding in for literally no reason. Like he could have just waited like 10 seconds. It's like he intentionally is trying to get Rick killed.
Yep, he's like, no. He's
like, run, Benny, run. And then he goes, don't you close that door.
No, Benny, no. Don't you close the door. Benny!
So, oh man, Benny May steals the show for most of this movie.
I love though that Benny goes when the colonel or whoever runs away, he goes, looks like you just got promoted.
Yeah. Was Egyptian archaeology, was it popular in the 20s? What's going on here?
It's not popular. It's gaining in popularity in the 20s for sure. Specifically because of the discovery of King Tut's tomb in the Valley of the Kings, which leads to a renaissance of Egyptology, I guess. Like it's early. Kinda, yeah.
Okay.
It's early Egyptology, but it's not Egyptology as we now know. It's glorified tomb raiding is what's going on in the 20s.
Very nice.
As, Westerners tend to do.
What is this like kind of mini skirmish battle that's going on here? Is this something that was common? Is this just...
No, it's something that they made up for the movie. Because basically what happens, if you're a historian and you can read the clues in the movie, it's that Rick O'Connell is part of the French Foreign Legion, which is a French expat battalion, even now, that's known for being made up of criminals and traitors and not necessarily bad people, but people whose countries don't really want them around, especially in this time period.
Gotcha, and trained like into militia.
Well, no, it's a professional fighting force for the French.
Oh, okay.
For the French army. It's the Foreign Legion. Everybody in it is from a foreign place. And so it's a very useful tool for the French because they have all sorts of languages and cultures within it, and they fight like crazy people, usually. This particular regiment of them rebels, goes AWOL, and hears about this city called Hamunaptra, which the name's revealed in a little bit, but that's where they are. And they march all the way across the desert out of Libya and into Egypt Libya is French Africa. Egypt is British Africa. So they're technically trespassing in British territory to even be here. And so, technically speaking, the horse horde that attacks them, which is also kind of weird, it has every right to do so. And the only thing that I could equivocate the horse guys to, because they just look like an army of bandits, just kind of like
Roman.
They
kind of look like pirates.
Is that they could be this culture called Mamluks, which are elite fighting horsemen that are a big part of Egypt in the Middle Ages and afterwards, and even into like the era of Napoleon and stuff. So it's not impossible that the British would have raised a conscription force of Mamluks to take on a trespassing force, but not if it's the French Foreign Legion, because at this time the British and the French have won World War I together, and they're pretty allies. Okay. Yeah, at least nominally, and so they wouldn't just immediately go annihilate this French Foreign Legion. So that's probably one of the more Hollywood parts of the movie in terms of the stuff that's supposed to look realistic. Like, that is not an encounter that ever would have happened ever in 1922.
Well, we got some more stuff that definitely didn't happen, but is cool as hell and definitely Hollywood. Right. The sand shifts into the absolute classic face of the mummy found on the poster and the cover of the DVDs. Like I already said, this has got to be one of the best movie posters of the 90s. Rick takes off on his own. What are the chances that he crosses this desert and survives? You already said that it's split essentially between French and British sides. How far has he got to get to civilization from this point? I mean, obviously, or do we know where Hamunaptra is, or is it real? Or
so Hamunaptra is not a real place, unfortunately. That would have been really cool. But one thing I can tell you though is that in Egypt, even today, all of the main population centers are along the Nile River. If he's that deep in the desert on foot, even if he's only, as the crow flies, 20 miles from Alexandria or Thebes, or not Thebes, Memphis, because Thebes is ruins now. But Memphis, Cairo, anywhere like that, the dude is a day and a half walk through sand dunes. And if he's farther than that, we're talking days and days and days. So honestly, the odds of him surviving that between bandits and scorpions and snakes,
and mountain lions.
And desert lions, which are a thing.
No, I was just kidding. Oh my gosh.
No, there are. I'm not sure if they still exist in Egypt at that point, but there are lions in the Sahara Desert.
Wow.
That have adapted to live there on the fringes of it. So dude's screwed. Like, the odds of him making out of there if he has to walk longer than like maybe 5 or 6 hours, assuming he knows where he's going,
right?
Like, infinitesimally small.
Well, he did say later on that he doesn't need a map. The map's all up here. So he knows where he's going, or at least he knows how to get back to where he was.
Think like jumping into the water when the Titanic is sinking. Yeah. And the fact that 1,400, 1,500 people did that and 6 of them survived, we're talking that level of bad odds.
Wow. Cairo, Egypt. We're introduced to Rachel Wise's, I hope I'm saying that right, Evelyn Carnahan. She's called Evie throughout the movie for the most part. And John Hannah's Jonathan Carnahan.
I love Jonathan so much.
Jonathan, I never cared for him as a kid. Watching it this time, a little bit older, I was like, he kind of holds it together, and he plays his part perfectly.
Oh, he does.
He does a great job.
Jonathan is a brave man masquerading as a coward, is what you find out. Like, as the movie goes on, like, he's goofy, but he's very much like, dude, I'm in it. I'll fight anybody you give it to me. Just don't ask me to fight them twice.
No kidding. He's like a rich kid who knows that they're rich and still is like trying to prove himself. He's like, no, sure. I'm tough, man. I'm from the streets, man.
And we find out that Jonathan is kind of tough, just not as tough as the people he's around.
No kidding. Okay. When they go to the Cairo prison to break out Rick O'Connell, there's these giant hamster wheels that people are running in. And I was like, is this a form of torture? Is this like a well pump? Like, what is happening here? But there's like 2 of them and there's people inside of them.
My gut reaction, because I didn't even bother looking that up because it's such a small part of the movie. My gut reaction is that it's that early 2000s, late 90s things where it's like, we're in the Middle East. We should have weird shit.
Yeah.
Like, we're in the desert. Things need to be weird.
Things have to be weird. There has to be a goat playing an instrument.
Yeah.
And all right. We find out that Rick is in prison for reasons.
reasons. A very good time.
He punches John, kisses Evie, gets hanged, and is released, and we're off to a boat. Fun fact here, Brendan Fraser passed out and was nearly killed during this scene.
I have read that.
He talked on the Kelly Clarkson
that they
show.
thought he was just acting that well, but his harness malfunctioned and he was actually suffocating.
Well, he was
right?
like on his tiptoes, and they were like, "Look, this doesn't look real," and they pulled it a little tighter. And he didn't describe it very well, but he's like, next thing I know, my elbow's in my ear, I'm laying on my side, and the stunt coordinator is like, hey, man, welcome to the club. The same thing happened to Mel Gibson during Braveheart. Legitimately, like the first thing he told him when he woke back up.
And if that doesn't make you feel like a badass, I don't know what would.
You're in company of greatness.
I'd be like, all right, well, now I got to do it twice. Strap me back up.
Clean shaven with a fresh haircut, Rick arrives to swoon Evie and warn the crew that they're only finding sand and blood on this journey. Nighttime Egyptian pirates board the boat at the same time we meet the bloody Americans. Most excellent line. I'm going to give mine right here. When Rick O'Connell meets the Americans and they're playing poker, and he says, I only gamble with my life, not my money. That's a great line.
My most excellent line comes shortly after this, where, long story short, the pirates attempting to take the cipher and the key from Evie light the boat on fire. Gunfight ensues. The Americans enjoy the gunfight way more than any sane people should, as Americans do. Everybody jumps off of the boat, and Benny and his group of Americans, because Benny is discovered by Rick leading the Americans to Hamunaptra, have all the horses. Rick and his crew end up on the correct side of the river to get to Hamunaptra. And my most excellent line is when Benny says, hey, O'Connell, look who got all the horses. And Rick goes, hey, Benny, look who's on the wrong side of the river.
that is a great line as well. You can't argue that Brendan Fraser, as soon as he is clean shaven and on the boat, is one-liner after one-liner until about 15 minutes before this movie ends. We kind of skimmed over it, but I do want to talk about just a couple things real quick. They find a book. There's a book, and it's the book Amun-Ra. Is it real? It's supposed to be the Book of the Dead.
Yeah, the Book of the Dead is real.
The Book of the Dead, not the one from the Evil Dead, where it rises demons from the ground. No, this one rises a mummy. You know what? I'm starting to understand that just reading is evil. Just don't do it. If you don't read, you won't raise anybody from the dead that's not supposed to be.
Yeah, the Book of the Dead is real, and we actually have translations of it. I got to read some of it for my Egypt class.
Don't read it out loud. You'll raise something from the dead, Kyle. Did you watch the movie?
I did.
Gosh.
The thing about it, though, is that the Book of the Dead actually could not, in any capacity, even if magic existed, would not be the book you would want to use to resuscitate that mummy.
Why is that?
Because the Book of the Dead is spells that are intended to help your soul get through this thing called the Duat, which is Egyptian purgatory, pretty much. So what happens in ancient Egypt, you die. Your soul is released back into...
From a lion.
It's the agent from whatever, probably at the age of 23 from stepping on a nail and getting sepsis. But you die at some point, as all humans do, and they did it a lot more back then than they do now.
Right.
Your soul is
they still only did it once, but I get the idea.
Your soul is released to the underworld, and to get to the temple of or the kingdom of Osiris in the underworld, which is where you are judged, you have to navigate your way through this like phantasmal soup known as the Duat, which is basically all the chaos energy and wayward spirits and weird oases of calm that the Egyptians believe existed literally directly under the surface of the world.
Okay.
To do that, it behooved you to know some magic yourself, because Egyptian mythology and underworld mythology is all about magic. The belief is that all human souls are magic. Most human bodies suppress them. And a handful of magicians can do magic, but generally you can't access this magic till you die. And the pharaoh, as the incarnation of whether Amun or Ra or Horus or whatever god is the pharaoh god in the dynasty in question, is the most powerful magician of all people. When his soul is released, he's trying to get back to his god. So he should be able to cast these spells and find his way to the temple of Osiris to have his heart judged against the feather of truth, which is basically heaven or hell. Where are you going?
Okay.
It's
Very
fascinating,
interesting.
actually.
Yeah, very neat.
But point being, that's not what that book does. That book is not about coming back from the dead. That book would only drive that mummy towards his inevitable conclusion of being judged at the foot of the throne of Osiris, the god of the underworld.
So do you think this phantasm soup that you're talking about, like the underworld and the purgatory, is that kind of what Natsume Namun? Oh my gosh, I started off saying her name.
No,
right.
the Dwat is exactly what would cover her. Like that's
what she's.
That's
like,
what
that's
he
what
would
her,
be.
The CGI puddle looking thing.
Whether the movie like cast knew that or not, whether that was an intentional thought, that's exactly what that would be. Like in that instance, if you're trying to bring her soul back, you would have to yank it out of the Dwat if she's still wondering. If she has refused to find the Temple of Osiris because she knows that Imhotep is looking for her, then she would just be roaming in this abyss, so to speak,
for 3,000 years.
You would have to use magic to drag her back out.
A Natsunamun. I don't know why I can't say that. Natsunamun. Okay. There's another excellent line here when Evie asked, "By the way, why did you kiss me?" And Rick replies, "I don't know. I was about to be hanged. It seemed like a good idea at the
time." Proving that stupid questions only get stupid answers.
That's fair. That's fair. How many times have we had a shot where there's someone looking into a mirror, we look away, and when we look back, there's someone standing behind them?
Oh, I know.
Oh, 99. You should have known better.
Oh, I know.
So we talked about how the ship is set ablaze accidentally at first and then purposefully later. I like how the pirate people just like went along with it.
I mean, look, the boat's already on fire. Like, whatever.
Let's make it more on fire. The shot of the bullet holes getting closer to Rick's head and then Evie pulling him out of the way right as one would have run right through his head. First off, great.
Oh,
great scene. Also, improvised the day of shooting.
That's awesome.
Just totally thrown in.
That's cool.
So, yeah. Also, fun fact here, Evie's white gown became transparent when it was wet and had to be digitally painted white to avoid nudity in their PG-13 film.
Wow. Or, hear me out, guys, just put fabric under the gown.
They probably didn't realize it until it was.
And then they had the perfect shot, and they were like, you've
already got everyone else.
Yeah.
Already. Yeah, that's my.
And you're
guess.
like, there's already CGI at every point in this movie. Might as well just crank it. Like, why not?
Instead of horses, they use camels. Camels do better in the desert because they require less water. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Horses are never the choice if you're in the desert, unless you know that you're going to have access to plenty of water. They are faster than camels. They're more well-behaved, but camels are a far better choice if you're trying to survive in the desert or go anywhere.
And according to the Scorpion team, camels are smarter. So the city of Hamanatra appears as the sun rises for, again, reasons. I don't know.
Reasons.
Evie's camel, inexplicably, is faster than all the horses and
all the other camels.
So she wins the $500 bet of who arrived first. She then leads the expedition as they're the first down into the tombs. There is a hilariously not PC line here where one of the guys goes, they're led by a woman. What does a woman know? Like,
which is funny,
dang, dude.
Because Evie's group, with the exception of the jailer who goes with them, who gets his brain eaten by a scarab beetle,
right?
Does not encounter any misfortune in this tomb. What happens is that the cocky guy leading the Americans gets them involved in a hydrochloric acid trap where he just sacrifices these hired servants that they have that get burned alive by this trap of the pharaohs.
Right. Okay, so another thing that Evie knows that the other ones don't is this ancient mirror technique. Is there anything showing that this is real? The sun reflects a mirror into another mirror and another mirror and another mirror.
I mean, not really. Torches are the way to go.
Torches.
Because here's the thing: the sun is always in a different place in the sky. So unless you only
constantly move it,
unless you only want to be able to see for like an hour and a half, that's not really a viable thing.
Yeah, maybe they're being environmentally conscious. They were like, look, these torches are putting up a lot of smoke.
I think they were just like, it's Egypt, desert, must be cool.
That's true. If you light a torch and it's any hotter in this room, I swear to God, I'm going to kill you.
Exactly.
All right. They're skittering herd as they go into the preparation room, searching for a hopefully still dead mummy, foreshadowing the true villain of this. Foreshadowing that bad CGI bugs are worse than any movie monster you could possibly have.
God, yeah.
Speaking of which, our Cairo prison warden is the first to meet his unfortunate fate.
After making a really funny noise where he mimics the hieroglyph and goes, which is, if for those of you who haven't met me in person, is maybe the most Kyle Rickman thing in this entire movie. And Dustin can back me up on that.
Yeah. Yep. Maybe that's your character. That's who you would be.
No, I am Jonathan, and we all know it. Okay.
I'll fight Jonathan, but you have a one Cairo prison warden moment.
Exactly.
That's fair.
Well, because my moment would be being saved by the Americans on the boat, like Jonathan isn't going, thank you, chaps. And did I panic? No, I did not. And then fire erupts and I scream and jump off the boat.
All right. We know the answer to this. You already told us. There's no scarab skeletons.
No.
They're just dung beetles.
Yep.
Well, that's a pile of dung, in my opinion. And it was a pressurized salt acid, according to the people in the movie.
And salt acid is hydrochloric
acid. Is it the same thing? Okay.
Pretty much.
Enough, yeah. So it's an ancient booby trap. This reveals the 5 jars, while John playing golf reveals the sarcophagus. And just like that, we have a mummy in our mummy movie.
But we should talk about the fact that the Magi, who have previously attacked the boat, now attack the camp. A very cool gunfight, sword fight ensues.
Yeah. Evie kills a man.
Evie knocks a man off his horse with a shotgun.
She shoots him with a shotgun, and then she's like, "Oh, okay," just goes on like nothing.
My
happened.
main man, Jonathan, bottle of wine in one hand, M1911 pistol in the other, wards off raiders until he runs out of ammo, and then he runs across the camp screaming for Rick.
And then Rick lights a stick of dynamite. And the Magi leader's like, this is stupid. All right, I'm leaving.
And the Magi leader is like, look, you can stay here, but all you're going to find here is death. And then he leaves.
Death will come on swift wings to whoever opens this chest.
So many good lines.
I know. And then there's an unexplained wind. And then they open the chest anyways. What the hell are you guys thinking? What the hell?
Freaking white people. I swear to God.
There's like 4 times where like wind keeps blowing. They even mention it in the movie and they're like, that keeps happening around here. I think it's Rick. He says like, they say something and then the wind blows and the fire almost goes out.
Yeah,
and he's like, that keeps happening. What? Get out of there.
I was reminded of the Eddie Murphy skit where he's like, have you realized that only white people live in haunted houses because a black person's house is haunted and they put a Century 21 sign in the yard and they get out. And he goes, white people are like, the house is telling me to leave. Why? Why does it want me to leave? What could possibly be causing it to want me to leave? And everybody else is like, I don't care why the house wants me to leave. The house is talking. I'm leaving.
Could a mummy be juicy?
No, not
gross line, but
not in the deserts of Egypt. It probably
but he was like underneath the statue, man.
I get that, but it's a desert, and it's been at that point 2,100 years. So
2,100 years. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, because BC, like you count down, and so it's the 1290 plus 1920, so 2,200 years actually.
3,200 years.
Yes, 3,200 years.
Math.
I don't need to do math. I'm a historian. Anthropologists do math for me. Sure, buddy.
All right. So 3,000 years of dry sand surrounding your ass, and you're not going to be juicy when you come out. That's the moral of the story.
Moral of the story is every part of this movie when it comes to the mummies is bullcrap. It's awesome bullcrap, but it's bullcrap.
So in the middle of the night, Evie steals the book and inexplicably reads it, awakening our juicy mummy into our CGI monster now.
Mm-hmm.
Also, accompanying his arrival is a swarm of locusts. We're going to kind of skim over some of these things.
Yeah, we got to.
Now that we've seen multiple stupid decisions, who's the stupidest? Or who has made the stupidest decision?
Oh, man. I think Evie reading the book. I mean, I know that she has no way of knowing that the magic is real, but like the really scary guy who led an army to try to kill you to stop you from reading the book explicitly looked you in the eye and told you not to read the book.
Even the dummy leading the other crew was like, you must not read the book.
No, don't do that. Yeah.
That has to be, I think
I view it the same way as believing in ghosts or not believing in ghosts. Whether you do or you don't, you're not out anything if you don't believe in ghosts and you don't challenge ghosts. You're out a lot if you don't believe in ghosts, you challenge them and they throw something at you. Like suddenly it's your problem, right?
Right. I always thought that it was a weird decision to have Evie be the one that reads the book.
Yeah, but it's a nice plot point because whosoever opens the tomb will be consumed by the monster, and one by one, the Americans get their bodily fluids sucked out of them,
All right, so bad guy Benny. That's what he's going to be known from
Bad
now
guy
on.
Benny,
Bad guy
BGB.
Benny not only steps on one of the American guy's glasses, but then steals the torch that he was using, leaving the already blind guy alone in the dark. He's our mummy's first victim, and we can see that with each feeding, he regenerates. Evie falls through a trapdoor and finds our eyeless, tongueless American and the mummy. The mummy appears to want to eat her in a very different way, and he calls her a Natsunamun, gets shot, and gets right back up.
Oh my god, that was awesome. That was amazing. Please keep going. I need this.
Bad guy Benny immediately surrenders to our mummy and becomes his Igor.
After going through every main religion in the world, hoping that one of them works. And then he works because he pulls out the Star of Judah, and the mummy's like, the language of the slaves.
So we talked about this in one of our, I forget which one, how it was just like culturally acceptable to be like jokingly racist towards Asian people during this time period. So he pulls out the cross and he speaks in English. He pulls out something else and he speaks in a different language. I don't remember. He pulls out like one that has the Buddha on it, and literally the subtitles, it says speaking gibberish. He's not speaking any Asian language. He's just speaking gibberish. And it's very obvious if you listen to it. And then when he speaks Hebrew, why does he say it's the language of the slaves?
So there's this ongoing historical debate over whether the slavery spoken of in the Bible of the Jewish people being enslaved en masse by the Pharaoh is real. I don't think we have ever really come to a firm answer on that.
Okay.
However, if it's real, they would have spoken Hebrew. And one cool thing about Hebrew is that it has, as far as we can tell, it has barely changed since the days of the Torah, which are the holy books of Judaism. And so when he pulls out the Star of David, I think I called it the Star of Judah earlier. I apologize. I'm a historian. I know it's called the Star of David. I was excited. When he pulls out the Star of David and he says whatever prayer he says, I don't speak Hebrew. Imhotep, assuming that the Jewish people were actually enslaved in Egypt, would have recognized the Hebrew, even if it sounds kind of weird. He'd have been like, "Oh, okay, you're a slave. Awesome. You're going to do what I tell you to."
Okay, that makes sense. So we meet the most random character in this very random movie, Winston. He says, "I'm the last of the Royal Air Force still left out here." What the hell is this? Is this like a British Air Force officer in the middle of Egypt for some reason?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think what it is he was probably the older, wizened fighter pilot in World War I, and he was probably given a retirement stationing in Alexandria, and now he's old beyond his years because he's an alcoholic.
That's fair.
He's I think my thing is he's too old to be who he is, though, because fighter planes were new in World War I, and they're a young man's game, and so it's
only 23.
Yeah, well, I think I think at this point it's 1929 at that point in the movie.
Okay, so a few years. Okay, so there's a few years that have passed.
But point being is that so he's maybe what, 40? Maybe 40, maybe 45.
He doesn't look 40.
He looks like he's freaking
70, 75. Yeah. The scene where the blind guy meets Imhotep is much more horror than it is action, and this is probably the scariest portion of the movie.
The fact that poor dude had to get sucked by the mummy twice, that's just...
Don't say sucked by the mummy.
I'm sorry. You referenced the mummy eating Evie, so I think I'm allowed to say
that's
sucked
fair.
by the mummy.
That's fair. All right. Turnabout's fair play. The plagues continue to play out.
Est by the M, if you will.
All right, moving on. The plagues continue. Rivers turn to blood, fire from the sky, the usual. This is actually part of the movie that got cut. And while I was watching this, I was like, I don't really care about these plagues. One by one, the Americans are killed, and Imhotep gains more and more power. CGI decreases, bald guy increases. They're looking for the gold. They're looking for the gold book of Amun-Ra, which isn't it the same name, Book of Amun-Ra? It's the same name, right?
That's the Book of Life. Yeah,
yeah, but the gold book is the Book of Life.
Mm-hmm.
But they're titled the same, the Book of Amun-Ra.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that because the Book of the Dead and the Book of Life are very different things.
Okay. All right, that's fine. That's fine. So this is the Book of the Living or something. I don't know. It doesn't make sense, but it's supposed to undo what the Book of the Dead did. The last of the Americans is eaten, and our heroes have to offer up Evie to Imhotep.
I also just, as a responsible historian, I have to tell you there is no Book of Life in ancient Egypt. Like, that's not a thing.
Son of... We're never going to kill this mummy. We're
No.
never going to kill him.
But the Book of the Dead can't bring him back anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Don't find the Book of the
not what
In-Between.
it does.
Don't find the Book of the 30-year-old who's lost all hope in life but is technically still living. That might bring back a mummy. Moving on, the curator sacrifices himself for some reason. He definitely could have gone down there and did not really help them in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Winston volunteers his pilot services under the condition that it would get him killed. Literally the only thing he cares about. Imhotep and his gang travel via tornado. For reasons.
For reasons.
He sends a wall of sand after the plane.
The Missouri in me was a big fan of that. I was like, yep, just harness that tornado and ride that baby.
So he uses this big wall of sand. I have a couple fun facts here. And also, well, I have a fun fact and then I have an observation. The fun fact is this. Whenever they did this, the scene or the shot from behind him, they had to pan up quickly when he raises his hand and there's like a big puff of sand because the air that they were pushing the sand up with kept blowing his gown up and showing his ass. So
that's so funny.
They had to pan up really fast so you didn't see his mummy cheeks.
Oh,
and
no.
Then secondly, the fact that they are flying this plane to get to Hamunaptra at the same time or beat the mummy there. Okay. The fact that they're flying this plane and there's this huge wall of sand that is not moving in a single direction, it is chasing after them just to make sure that they know it's the mummy. He puts his face in it. Like,
just in case.
Okay, yeah, that's from the mummy. I didn't realize that from the freaking wall of sand chasing us across the desert.
Can we talk about the fact that Winston, the old pilot, is told that it's a mission where they're probably going to die? And he's like, excellent, sign me.
This is exactly what we wanted. Winston gets his death. He goes down with the plane as it sinks into the quicksand. What's the gun on the back of the plane? It looks so interesting.
Yeah, it's a Lewis gun. So it's a First World War machine gun, and it's just a heavier caliber version of it that they mounted on the back of that airplane as a tail gunner.
Okay.
Yep.
So now we're in our final act here, man. John finds one of the bugs and it proceeds to eat its way under his skin. Not to worry, O'Connell cuts it out and then stomps on it. Sight. He shoots it with a freaking pistol. It's a bug. It's a bug. Stomp on it.
It's a bug.
Why did you feel the need to shoot
You
it?
don't carry, well, because you're carrying 4 guns. You're going to get itchy at some point, right?
I guess so. Imhotep summons the wall art as mini boss mummies to prepare our heroes for their final encounter. Cool guy move of shooting the mirror and lighting up the treasure room instead of just moving it.
Well, yeah. Duh.
At this point, I realized Brendan Fraser has a lot of the same facial expressions as John Krasinski does in The Office.
He really does.
They kind of look a little similar.
Yeah, he's got that weird, like, I don't know, like good guy smirk going on.
Yeah. He's got that kind of like, I know I'm cool. I'm not like a model good looking, but I'm a good looking dude. People like me. I'm like,
in normal world, I'm a super good looking dude. I'm kind of average for Hollywood, but you know.
But I'm gonna run this, man. Mm-hmm. So tied to the table next to mummified Anat-sin-Amun, Evie is in her last living moments unless our heroes pull off a miracle. They find the book of Amun-Ra, and just in the nick of time they arrive as the CGI ghost begins to bring Miss Mummy back to life.
We should also talk about the Magi warrior who has joined them, who, while all of this is happening, is holding off the mummy army with a shotgun and a prayer.
And then Brendan Fraser throws a freaking stick of dynamite at him.
Yep.
What's the point, man? Why are you sending these people to their death just to close the exit? Like, could he not join you and then you close the exit together?
Nah, dude. He has to, even though we've closed the only hallway leading to this area from this room, we gotta hold him off, man.
All right.
I don't know.
O'Connell whips ass, then runs. The priest guards are brought back to life, then scream. Evie is freed, then chased around by Anat-sin-Amun. Jonathan has to read the ancient Egyptian text on the cover of the Golden Book, not even open it, just on the cover. He finishes the text and then commands the guards to kill Anat-sin-Amun again. All of this while Imhotep stands there doing nothing.
Pretty much.
He doesn't move. He does nothing this whole time. So there is this little thing in Hollywood. It's called like a bad guy throw. I don't know if that's exactly what it's called. It is when you have your unstoppable force of a bad guy and he finally gets his hands on your hero And he takes him and he throws him because, oh my God, look at how strong I am. I can throw our good guy across the room. How much damage does it do? Absolutely none. How many times when I do it? And many times I need to until our good guys are going to, find a way to kill me. And he does it 4 freaking times in a row, man. What the heck?
How many times can the good guy smack into cement at 10 miles an hour and be fine? Apparently, inevitably.
Imhotep's just like grabs him, throws him, grabs him, throws him, grabs him. I'm like, oh my God, dude, if you're that strong, just like tear him in half, break his neck, do something, just kill him.
Just grab his chin and go.
You're done. You're done. Evie reads so stupid.
This is why we don't get to be bad guys in films. We know we're too serious about what we do. They're like, nah, man, you can't kill people as the bad guy. You just vaguely threaten to kill people.
I can't be a Bond villain. I would just shoot him the first chance I got, and I'd be like, all right, why did that take you guys like 40 movies? Yeah,
I couldn't be a villain in any movie because I'd be like, Mr. Powers, how good to see you. Machine gun nest appears from the balcony.
And now I will monologue over your dead body.
You sly dog, you caught me monologuing. Good thing I have 50 armed henchmen that are all going to shoot at you simultaneously instead of one at a time for implausible, ununderstandable reasons.
Well, no kidding. All right. Evie reads the sacred text and a ghost chariot takes the soul of Imhotep away. You think it kills him, but no, it just makes him mortal. O'Connell stabs him, he sinks into the ghost water, and boom, dead mummy once again. An entire ancient temple just starts falling apart because bad guy Benny. He sets a bag of gold on this lever. Why is there a single lever that sinks the entire place? Has it been sitting over a trapdoor this entire time? That stood for 3,000 years. How does it all sink?
Desert scary, Dustin. Desert must have weird things.
My goodness. Finally, Denny is a comeuppance, surrounded by all the treasure he could want. Benny faces the swarm of CGI bugs just as his torch fades out. Our heroes escape the collapsing, exploding, imploding, sinking temple and leave with some treasure that remains on the camels. But I wouldn't say I left empty-handed. Smooch to end the 1999 movie.
And then the glimmer of gold in the back of the camel's bag to imply that our heroes will be fine after all.
They'll be rich. I mean, they might be imprisoned in Cairo for reasons. Because they had a very good time. All right, my man, you know what time it is. Biggest dope, biggest nope.
Okay.
Last one is season 2.
Oh, man. Okay.
Have we been doing this for all of season 2, or did we start this in season 2?
Brother, you expect me to remember March?
That's fair. You want to go first? You want me to go first?
You go first.
I'll go first. Ready?
Yes.
Set. Go. I'm going to give the biggest dope to the specific scene where Benny brings the blind, tongueless American guy to meet Imhotep, and he goes, my client would like to thank you for your eyes and your tongue, but unfortunately he's going to have more. I was like, that's brutal. That's brutal. The horror fan of me loved that. I'm going to go with the specific shot of the tornado and then being like launched out of it. Just so cheesy. That crossed the line of cheesiness for me. All right, go. That was my biggest nope. Sorry, I didn't say that.
I can't see the time. You're holding it too far. Thank you. My biggest dope is when Rick first sees the mummy and it growls at him as evil mummies do, and he growls back and then shoots it with a shotgun.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Biggest nope is the partial CGI mouth opening when Imhotep is scared away by the cat that Rick holds up to him, and like the CGI looks fine, and then the mouth opens and immediately looks like garbage.
Yeah. 1999 CGI, man.
It was really good for 1999. Like I don't want to like cast aspersions. Like for when it was made, it was good CGI. It's just we're 25 years removed from that, so
Which makes me wonder how the Marvel movies are going to look in 25 years to us.
Well, since they won't be 3D projections that we like watch in our living room, I'm sure that they won't look all that good. But
I don't know, man. We'll find out. They won't be implanted.
Or we'll think they looked really good because we'll be huddled around our fire in the zombie apocalypse thinking, damn, you remember when we had TVs and air conditioning?
Do you remember when we were mad because our multiverse movie didn't end the way we wanted it
to? The fun thing about studying history is you get painfully aware that sadly it probably won't be, but this might be the best it ever gets for your society, and you never know until you find out.
That's fair, man. That's fair. All right, Kyle, what's your rating, buddy?
Okay, history rating. Oh, Jesus Christ. 3, 2, somewhere in there. It's not important. It's not a history-heavy movie. We just wanted to do something fun that had enough history in it to justify it being in the history of Hollywood.
I think it fits. I think it fits.
Does.
You had some
good
points here.
There's a lot of there's a lot of cool they didn't do that right, but it's cool that they had that in the movie, like the Book of the Dead, like Seti the First, things like that. Like the Dwat, even though that may not be what they call it, but like using history for history's sake, 2. Personal enjoyment, I'll give it a 6.5.
Yeah.
It's fun. I'll watch it. It's way more fun with a group of people. It's a true action movie in the sense that you got to watch it with a buddy. So I watched it with my friend, and her and I had a hilarious time watching that movie because if you make fun of it just enough, it's awesome.
Yeah.
But if you just sit down and watch it, it's fun, but you're going to be like, oh, geez. Okay. And we shoot Mummy with shotgun, and cat, and old guy, and plane.
Do you know what movie Brendan Fraser did that got him this role?
George of the Jungle.
Are you serious? Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought that was funny, and I never would have guessed that. But yeah, George of the Jungle is what caught the director's attention. Man, I'm excited for season 3, but I'm also excited to take a little break. Take a hiatus.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I think we did a great job improving season 2. I think we've really come into our own. I think we're still getting started. I still think we're still ramping up. So, a little pat on our own back. Thank you for our audience, man. Like to, I think I said this at the end of season 1. It's just an honor that we're able to do this. And if there were nobody listening, then we probably wouldn't continue to do this. But you guys are sticking with it, and we're sticking with it. And by gosh, we're happy to have you on this journey with us. Kyle, any words of thanks, praise, anything for the audience?
Yes. Be excellent to each other always.
Gosh, dang it.
And rock on, dudes. No, real talk. Thank you guys so much. It's really
party
fun.
on, dudes. It's not rock on, dudes. It's party on, dudes.
I don't care, man. When I'm sitting around my zombie apocalypse fire, I'm not going to even remember this happened. So leave me alone. Anyway.
Maybe this is what will cause the zombie apocalypse.
Before I was so rudely interrupted by Captain Arkansas over there. Way over
Sergeant
there.
Arkansas.
It's not. I promise you. Maybe Corporal.
That's fair.
Anyway, I appreciate everybody who listens to this podcast. I really appreciate our international listeners, especially the ones who we don't know who you are. That feels really special to me.
4% in the UK now. We're up to 4% in the UK.
That makes me feel really special that we have people who have heard our podcast through unrelated to like us talking about it and like it. That's awesome. I appreciate you all. We have really fun TikToks coming down the horn, courtesy of Dustin at some point.
Yeah.
That Facebook page that's kind of like your decrepit old cat that just won't die. I promise you, it's going to get a leg transplant. I just gave up because we were recording podcasts and we got super far behind this season. So we definitely have not maybe overcommitted to the amount of episodes we're doing. And we certainly are not changing the format completely next season to make sure that we get a brain break in the middle of them. That's not happening.
Yeah, it turns out whenever you're in your mid-20s and have a job and have a kid and have a lot of responsibilities, that sitting down and recording and editing and doing a lot of things, you don't have a lot of time for that stuff.
Turns out if we'd have done this 2 years ago, we'd have had much more energy to be doing it. But here we are.
No kidding. But that's okay, man.
It's all right.
I'm glad, we could be 2 years older and going, wow, I wish we would have done that. So
amen.
I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we're doing it. But yeah, season 3 is going to be here probably within the next few months, but don't expect any new episodes for a little while. Spotify apparently has comments now.
Ooh.
Or I guess by now they'll be out for a couple weeks. So if you want to, and if you can figure out how, leave us a comment and I'll try to figure out how to comment back. But without further ado, cue the music. Kyle, thank you again for this wonderful season.
You're so welcome.
And ladies and gentlemen, we will return. All right.
Awesome.
See y'all.
Bye, guys.